What's going on, everybody? Welcome back. MTG here with another episode. If you're new to the channel, hi there. As you can see from the title down below, I'm going to talk about the Galaxy S23 Ultra and why I would choose it over the iPhone 14 Pro Max. Now, before I do begin, I just want to let you guys know this is just my personal preference. Everyone has their own opinions, and I respect everyone's opinions on which device they would prefer over another device. And I've used the iPhone 14 Pro Max, and I do use it as my secondary. I use it as my main iPhone. However, my main SIM card that I use on a daily, the phone that I use daily, it's this right here, the S23 Ultra. And I probably won't be putting my main SIM card in the iPhone 14 Pro Max. So I'm going to share with you guys why I would personally choose this over the 14 Pro Max. So everything that I'm going to talk about is pretty much what I've noticed when using both of the devices. Starting with the software, yes, Android 13 on S23 Ultra and iOS 16 on the iPhone 14 Pro Max. Here's what I noticed. There hasn't been any lag or stutters on the S23 Ultra. In fact, it's been the exact opposite. Buttery smooth, very fast, and no lag whatsoever. That's not the case with the iPhone 14 Pro Max. There's some stutters, it lags, it freezes quite often actually, something I don't like. And when comparing it to the S23 Ultra, this just looks better because the software experience this is a part of the phone that you're going to be using quite often, you're interacting with, is the software. So I think having good software makes the user experience that much better. Now the S23 Ultra, it also doesn't get warm to the touch when using it during long periods of times, but the 14 Pro Max does. That's also something I noticed in the software department. There's been more bugs just generally in the iPhone 14 Pro Max with iOS 16 when compared to the S23 Ultra. And look, this is not like I just unboxed this phone and I'm using it after a day. I've been using this for more than a month now. And these are the things that I've noticed. That's going to bring me into the battery life. This is a huge comparison and something that's really different from each other. The S23 Ultra has superb battery life. You can't go wrong with it. Like, I'm getting 7 hours of screen on time with about 50% battery life, and then almost 11 hours of screen on time with 6% battery life remaining on the Galaxy S23 Ultra. And I gotta say, the iPhone 14 Pro Max, it doesn't last that long. And I'm a heavy user, so I need a phone that's going to last me super long. And I know the S23 Ultra won't let me down. And it has not let me down in the month that I've been using it. Entering month 2, I can still rely on this. Whereas the 14 Pro Max, it has let me down at least 2 or 3 times, so that's just a bummer. And it's actually worse than the 13 Pro Max, its predecessor. That had really good battery life. That was my battery champ at the time. And actually, the 13 Pro Max would be a better comparison with the S23 Ultra when it comes to battery life. Like the 14 Pro Max, it has good battery life, but since I'm testing phones all the time, I'm comparing a lot of things with each other, and I just gotta say, battery life is something that a heavy user like myself really depends on and cares for. So that's just me. Battery life on the S23 Ultra has just been so much better. And that's gonna bring me into something that's kind of my personal opinion, and that's just the fact that the S23 Ultra is an Android device. I love using the iPhone. I've always loved Apple and their products, and I use a lot of their products, as you can probably see from my other videos on the channel. My main workflow is pretty much Apple devices, but I've always been an Android user, and up until my workflow transitioned to Apple products, I've just always been in like the Android and Windows space, and I'm just used to it. And in fact, my first smartphone was the Samsung Galaxy S Blaze, the T-Mobile model. And I loved that device until it got hard-bricked, and now it just doesn't work. So that's just a bummer. Like, I don't have anything against the iPhone. I don't have anything against iOS. Absolutely love it. But for me, I've just gotten used to using Android as my main device. And yes, I still have an iPhone, and that's something I use for my business and for my YouTube work. And that's also something I use because a lot of my friends use iOS devices and iMessage. Now, it also depends on where you're located. I know the US is mainly predominantly iOS users. I can probably count maybe 2 or 3 of my friends that use an Android device, but the rest of them all use iPhone. And when they create an iMessage group, and it just gets very nitpicky, and I don't want to go into detail about those things, but kind of use location based too. If you're in different parts of the world, then you may have a more Android oriented lifestyle. But for me, all of my friends and the people I'm with use an iPhone. So that is probably why I have an iPhone, as on top of the fact that I use it for my business and for my YouTube work. But that's going to bring me back to the main thing. Like, my main SIM card is going to be in the S23 Ultra. Now, I do hope iPhone 15 or whatever it's going to be called, iPhone 15 Pro Max or 15 Ultra, whatever the rumors are, I hope they make some significant improvements more in the user experience. I like the design of the iPhone. I'm not too nitpicky about that. I think the user experience is something that's really important. I think we need to put more effort into, and Samsung did a really good job with the S23 Ultra. So do take note. I use a lot of their other Apple devices, like the MacBook Air, and hopefully the 15-inch MacBook Air if that comes out, the AirPods Max, the iPad mini, which is actually my favorite, was one of my favorite devices used in 2022, and my favorite device in 2021. I use that a lot, and it has been a huge factor in improving my workflow and my productivity. But the S23 Ultra in this past month has also helped with my productivity, my workflow, and just my general experience. I've been genuinely happy using a phone with great battery life, with great camera quality, and no problems with the software experience. So seriously, good job, Samsung. So just to wrap things up, this is pretty much like just my personal preference and opinion. Again, I respect everyone and anyone who has their own opinions on which device is better than which and which ones they prefer. This is just what I prefer. I'd love to hear your thoughts about what you think about the Galaxy S23 Ultra. If you did enjoy this video, be sure to superman that like button, comment down below, check out my latest wallpaper pack, Nebula. This has now become my #1 best-selling and overall my #1 wallpaper pack that everyone has preferred over my other ones. So thank you all so much for the support. Please be sure to check that out if you haven't already. And best of all, share this video because it really does help out the channel a lot and will help push my content out to more people. That's been it for me, and I'll catch you guys in the next episode.